Hello, people. Exciting times, exciting news. Turns out there's been a talk show recently with people who are known in the common law community of Karl Lentz, Gus, Al, King, and others. There's been a talk show recently which has been quite interesting, covering a bit about Karl Lentz and the common law tactic, and as one guy said, trying to restore the faith in the system of knowledge, or the knowledge that's been revealed by Karl Lentz to the masses, the peons, the dumb shits, if you will, in order to help protect themselves from those that would take pleasure in doing you ill. And this talk show is quite good, and maybe there's a few coming up, but talk show, in my opinion, is a ghastly program. I mean, it does work, but it's not very good if you want to go through a talk show to a specific point. And for your viewing pleasures, I've done that just to get it concisely put together. I missed out about 20-30 minutes at the end, so if there was anything massively interesting at the end, I'm sorry, I've run out of patience for talk show. I've got through about 6 clips, so I've done my 6 clips. I'm putting them together, and hopefully that'll be a reasonable record for people to come and enjoy the talk show that was recently done with Gus, amongst others. Starts at the 40-minute mark, and I'll just let it play through. But essentially, you're going to hear a lot of grown men talking about law, talking about, if you will, the Bible, the Judeo-Christian culture, and how we need to come together in order to be stronger as a people, and to obviously be on one side of the coin. And I think we all know which side of the coin you're leaning on. All right, enjoy.
I had to, man.
That's a great audio, man. That dude's hilarious.
that dude's really cool.
So JC, tell me, what's this audio you had me upload today?
Tater salad. Tater salad.
Tater salad is the audio.
Tater tot.
That audio happened, obviously in North Carolina.
Hey, John, JC, you want to introduce us both there so they'll know what's going on with who?
Okay, so obviously I'm JC. The other man talking is the shaman. And, we've been doing this stuff for a while. We've seen a lot of success. We've also seen people get hurt. And, all of us who, listened to Karl Lentz at some point in time and started developing a lot of ideas from what he was saying. So, but at this point in time, we all know that he doesn't back up what he says. And a lot of people out there, I think, are losing faith. So the shaman and I are here to hopefully restore that faith and let everybody understand that this is not our law. We didn't create it. We are just ambassadors for the Father, for the man who did. And it's all of ours. This is his gift to mankind. So, with that particular audio, guy, a man, he was going to court, and he was asking where the accuser was, much like Gus. But he wasn't quite as comfortable as Gus was. And, the man in the funny black dress, he got him off of his rocker and was going to throw him in to a mental institution for 60 days. And so the shaman and I, we just had to put a stop to that. We had court set up for that woman. And in fact, if you listen to the woman who's acting as magistrate, it's really interesting, some of the things that she says. Like, when I talked to her about Article 1, Section 10, she says, well, it can't be a one-sided contract. The the officer in uniform that walked up to him, that testified on the stand saying that he tried selling an officer in uniform, which is obviously a lie, marijuana, like, that's just silly. But what she's saying there is, had the officer bought it, it would have been perfectly okay. Okay? And that's very, very interesting. And if you listen to the second part of the audio, when the shaman's talking about whose court it is and who set it up, because a woman named Linda set it up, the magistrate actually agrees with him. It's very, very interesting. They knew exactly what was going on. Kim, the woman who actually set it up with us, she was not there that day. Surprise, surprise, how convenient.
And they made sure she wasn't there.
Yeah, they told us that she went down to a seminar. We're like, uh-huh. So, and the reason I played that particular audio was because the woman I was talking to was a magistrate judge. Because she's a magistrate judge, she's not very well educated. And if she were better educated, she would have known to just be quiet.
But being arrogant, she decided that she had to keep going. That she had to trump us. She had to take the position. She was trying to take the position that had been created. And basically what we're telling you guys is, for all the times that Mr. Lentz said that just do this and just do that, he never did it. But we did. And they knew it. And they were freaking out.
Hey, Shaman, what happened? Because I know that I talk about in that audio how the judge threatened us to leave the court that Monday. What did we do after the judge threatened us?
Do you think that we ought to explain what happened just prior to that? Because I think it'll be more impactful, because I'm sure that they got word of what we figured out and we're trying to do down at the other building that they eventually locked us out of.
Sure, go ahead and explain it.
Okay. Well, it's actually a different day. Once you explain what happened leading up to that, we need to explain to them what happened prior to that moment when we first went in that morning.
So on Monday, when we all get up, and here's where people are having a lot of problems, is that they're just showing up by themselves. And, man, they don't really care if they're just going to get one man or one woman complaining about them. Okay, so you got to show up with a group of people, because when you have a group of people, if the man in the funny dress starts breaking the law, you can start filing multiple judicial complaints. And
you have everybody there to take notes and write down what they saw.
And everybody sees and hears different things. So the man goes up and they go ahead and revoke his promise. And the shaman and I, we have somebody, because the man's wife was sitting up on the side of a mountain 2 miles up a private driveway, okay? And so we have somebody go get that woman. And when she gets back, the shaman and I, we already have a claim written out for her. All she has to do is sign it. And so she signs it, and we go and we file it. And then we say, okay, when can we hold court? Like immediately. We require restoration of property immediately. And so they tell us that court will be held at 1:30. We go upstairs at 1:30. And, of course, they don't have the paperwork. We go downstairs, and they're like, we're taking the paperwork upstairs. And we go, no, just give us a copy. Make a copy real quick. And, look, we have the original. Just make this copy. Okay, thanks. So make a copy, go hand it to the bailiff to go give it to the judge. And the bailiff takes it, and the prosecutor takes it and looks at it, and him and his buddies look at it, and they go, oh, that's funny. And then they go and hand it to the judge. And the judge, sitting back in the judge's chambers, he starts peeking out the window, okay, peeking out the door. And, after that, he starts stalling as long as he possibly can. And so the shaman looks over and he's like, man, this guy's going to stall.
Trying to run the clock out.
Yeah. And so what did you do at that point?
So JC informed me that there was a magistrate down in the sheriff's office. And I'm like, I already know what you wish for me to do. So I got up. He stayed there with the wife. And I went down, and I requested that the magistrate come out and talk. So when he comes out, I explained to him that the wife is getting ready to come down, but that she has cancer, and she has to carry a feeding tube around with her and a stomach in a bag, and that she's going to be right behind me, but that she's going to require that he open up a court of record so that she may move a common law action and have her property returned. And he asked me what property, and I said, well, her caretaker, the only caretaker she has, which is literally a matter of life and death for this lady, is sitting back there in one of your little boxes. And he said the man's name. He said, oh, I know who you're talking about. And I said, well, she's coming down, and the other gentleman up there is running out the clock so that the court can't be open today, even though we already have a time. So we're going to require you to open one. And he starts freaking. He puts his hands up, and he's like, oh, no, I'm not doing that. And I said, sir, I'm not asking. It's your job. That's what your job is. I was courteous, respectful. I wasn't arrogant. Simply a matter of that's his job. He was visibly shaking. His hands were shaking. And he's like, I'm not going to do it. I said, so you're not going to perform your duty. That's what you're telling me. You're not going to perform your duty. And he said, I'm not going against the superior court judge, which means he actually knew already what had transpired, like they had already informed him, because I never mentioned the man's name. So he basically just turns away from me, starts talking to another lady real quick, looks, sees that I'm not leaving, and goes into the back so that I can't get to him anymore. So then I go up and I tell JC, hey, this is what happened. And so, pretty much they got all the guns, so we sit back down and we sit there and play the waiting game. JC, you want to take it back over with the paperwork thing? And we tried that with the bailiff.
Yeah, so, the man in the judge's chambers, he was obviously very nervous. One of the things that we were doing, just to make this really fun, is we knew he had a conflict of interest. He could not hear this. So we just wished to see what he would do. And obviously he ended up running out the clock, because otherwise we wouldn't have been there a couple of days later with our court set up and ready to go. And, so at the end, like the bailiffs, right about 5 o'clock, they tell us to leave. Court's closed. You can go home now. And so we're about to leave, and I stand up and I look at the guy up, behind the bench, and I say, are you ordering court closed today? And one of the bailiffs says, y'all got to get out of here. The courthouse is closed. And I go, man, I wasn't talking to you. Hey, you, man up there, are you ordering court closed? And, of course, that's a trap, because he can't order court closed. Court's 24/7. That's why the magistrate's office is open all of the time. And, of course,
he doesn't answer that question.
That guy, yeah, he doesn't answer the question, but he says, you guys better get out of here before y'all don't make it home tonight. And I just said, thank you. That's all we require. Because now he put that on the record. That's another open threat to multiple people in a court of law.
5 people, to be exact.
Right? So we go ahead and we walk out. And as soon as we walk out of the courthouse, of course, the sheriff's department is right across the street. We're like, well, there's a magistrate down there all the time for a reason. So we start walking down there. And they all, like, there were probably 10 people standing outside, and they all run inside and lock the doors. It was hilarious. And it says right there on the little window, it's like, if the sheriff's office is closed, if you show up after hours and you require a magistrate, go over to the side door and ring the bell.
Just a note, it wasn't after hours.
But, you know, we can do that anyway. So we go over to the side door, and, you know, the woman rings the bell, and she's like, yeah, I require a magistrate. And they're like, we don't have any magistrates here. And she was like, what you mean you ain't got no magistrate here? What if somebody just stabbed me in the neck and took my purse? Would you have a magistrate then?
What if somebody raped me?
It was hilarious, and we didn't even have to prompt her on that part of it. And people with that kind of attitude will pull it off almost 99% of the time. The people with the attitude of, you can't do that to me, I got rights. You're just a man too. You put your pants on one leg at a time, don't you?
And this girl is about as country as they come with no education. And she was perfect.
Yeah,
she was perfect.
She was a lot of fun to work with. So, you know, obviously, they're not going to let us into the sheriff's office. So what do? We call them, and we say, hey, we got to report a crime. Come over here quick. They ain't got a magistrate. So, Simon, you want to take this over?
So I'm standing there talking to a female officer, and she says, what are y'all doing hanging out here still? And I said, well, and I explained the situation, and she starts smiling, shaking her head. I'm like, yeah, because you know what's going on. And she's like, yeah. I said, I'm surprised you haven't got a call yet. About that time, the radio comes up, hey, we got a bunch of people out here wanting a magistrate. We've told the magistrate's not available. They're going to have to call. I don't know what they were thinking we were supposed to do. Will we call another country? I mean, so we're like, I just looked at her, and she shook her head, and she was relatively sympathetic. She knew what was going on. And, you know, we had a good rapport with her. Everything was pretty fine. About that time, it was between 7 and 8 officers surround us. And at one point, this big dude, he had to be 6'3", 6'4", just a big man. He starts putting on his gloves. About that time, that little bailiff that had been screwing with us all day starts running JC's tag. And I said, whoa, what the hell are you doing? Well, I'm running this tag. I said, you can't do that. He said, what do you mean I can't do that? I said, what crime did he commit? Well, I'm just getting the information. I'm like, no, you're opening an investigation on someone. You got to have a probable cause to believe he committed a crime. What crime did he commit? Well, who the hell are you? And I said, well, I'm going to hold back on this part. Anyway, I told him how I knew and why I knew. And he never did. He went back. He walked away from me, held his head down. Basically, he never got the information returned to him because it was a violation of NCIC rules, which is under the Federal Traffic Highway Safety Act, and a bunch of grant money, and they'll take their 911 center away from them, essentially. But, you know, they were doing everything they could to intimidate us, and they were just, you know, here we are acting lawfully, peacefully, the whole time smiling, never raised our voice, never got angry, never showed, well, we were angry, but we never showed anger. Polite, sympathetic even, because we could tell that some of the officers just thought it was BS, you know, but it's foreign to some of them. Some of it's ignorance, some of it's arrogance. I mean, if those of you that listen to that audio, you can literally feel the molasses thick arrogance coming off of that woman, Jody, who acts as a magistrate sometimes, voice. I mean, she just thinks, basically what she said was, you have no rights. You can't open court. You can't do anything. To hell with you. Oh, and by the way, you do have a right to create your own court and your own officers, but we're not going to honor it. I mean, it's schizophrenia, and it's just arrogance. It's like the level is just sickening. It's annoying, but we didn't go away. Just to let you guys know that we didn't stop there. You want to say what we did next, JC?
Well, one thing I'd like to point out is when I'm talking with the magistrate, it's probably an interesting thing to note. Basically, I got this saying that all doctors and attorneys, they got to take, 2 courses in school before, and just so that y'all know, an attorney graduates with a Juris Doctorate. So an attorney is a doctor from an educational standpoint. And so doctors, basically, they got to take 2 courses, and this is just a joke, but, it's I Am God 101 and I Am God 102. And that's where, the arrogance and the, ego just completely overwhelms them, and it traps them every time because it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about us together, living in one community peacefully, abiding by the law of the man, the Father, the one true sovereign, okay? Because none of us are sovereign. We were just granted sovereign rights. Does that make sense to everybody?
I mean, the common misnomer, especially like just listening to some of the things on the horn tonight, because we were on the call the entire time, is like, it is absolutely about being correct, okay? And truth is the utmost, because without truth we have nothing. But at the same time, a lot of times it's not edifying. It's, look how smart I am. Look how smart what I know, and you're wrong. And it's this infighting that keeps happening. And it's, you got to do it my way. Well, I mean, that's fine if it's correct, but it should always be done in an edifying way. It shouldn't be done in a arrogant, overbearing, obnoxious way, because then you just become Jody. And that's what the hell we're all here trying to get rid of. And it's not getting rid of them as a person. It's saying, look, just do your job. I mean, what the hell is wrong with you? Just do your job. Do what's right. That's all. There's one truth. 1 + 1 is 2. I don't care if you go to Vega, Ohio, or Zimbabwe. If I write down 1 + 1 is 2, everybody go, yeah, that's good. That's good.
Because a lot of the stuff is symbolism. And symbolism is very, very powerful and very, very important. And I know that by a lot of people on this chat, they know the symbolism of the eye, okay? So the capitalization of letters was a slave language. It was the language for the slaves back in Roman times. And the eye is a symbolism of that, because the lowercase I is, like Karl likes to say, a body of a man with a head on it. And the uppercase I is the body with the arms and the legs straight out and the head chopped off. It's the corporate persons. Yeah, corporate persons, the dead fiction. And a lot of people don't understand some of these really, really simple ideas, like, they'll say appear in person. Like, a man or a woman can never appear in a state court. It can't happen. Okay? Only persons can. So if a man or a woman is going to appear in person at a state court, I would suggest appearing under duress. Okay? Because when you tell them how you appear, you can tell them exactly how you appear. And if you're under duress, they can't hold you to anything because it's by the threat of violence. It's really just that simple. And a lot of people in the movement, they get off on the Social Security and this birth certificate and this and that. Well, that's just a person, and it's not even your person. It's theirs. You don't have to use it.
If I may, one of the bigger problems that I hear is everybody showing how witty they are. Look, guys, it's this simple. The Social Security number is a car. It's a means of transportation through the world of commerce. Once you enter into that number, you become under the title of a person. Once you're under the title of a person, especially when you're using their car, you're bound to it, and you have to submit. You re-venue yourself into their jurisdiction, and everything is absolutely under their control. They have every right to tell you every duty to tell you everything of what to do, how to do it. And here's the other thing that, JC was pointing out, the I and letters and symbology. Look, Karl's absolutely correct when he talks about legalese, okay? But he doesn't expound on it. Look, legalese, all it is dog Latin. They're literally speaking in terms to you, not words. And everybody is, well, not everybody, but a lot of people confuse terms and words. Words and terms are two totally different things. And people look at a piece of paper that comes from the other side, and they think they understand what's on that paper, and then they start reacting to it. And they got you. They got you, man, right there. You've got to learn the difference between the two worlds. There's the world of law, and there's the world of legal. One is under the Father, one is under the rule of man, or the fallen one, whichever you wish to say.
And a really, the real technical term for what happens when you get, when you're underneath your governmental person is joinder. Okay, they have to create some type of joinder. And I know personally that certain officers have been trained that when they pull you over and they get your license, they'll say, "Is this you? Or do you live here?" Okay? Because they're establishing joinder. This is me. I live right here in my head. I've never lived anywhere else. Would you like to come visit sometime? And sometimes it's like you can get them laughing and things work out pretty well. Like a laughing jury is never a hanging jury. And so if you can get somebody laughing 9 times out of 10, they're going to let you go.
And if I may, one of the other big things that I hear often is a lot of anger and a lot of finger pointing and a lot of fear. Fear comes from the word fire. And the Creator is a purifier of fear. But you got to remember, the Creator also says, "Fear not," if you understand the law and who He is. And He writes it on your heart. You've got to figure out your placement in this whole thing. You've got to figure out and get rid of this fear, the anger, the animosity. And one thing that tends to upset people when I tell them this, and it was something that it took me a while to not only learn but to accept, is, man, most of the time it's our fault. They don't hide this shit from y'all. It's all over. I just read, there's a gentleman on this phone right now that JC and I are talking to. And he got a letter from an alphabet agency, and we spent time showing him how blatant it was, how right out in front it was. They're not talking to him. They're not even talking about him. And they are completely leaving it up to him to volunteer. There's no ambiguity. It's right there. But because he thinks he understands the language, he takes and goes and pops that right on his head, man, and there's that burden. Then the burden creates fear. Fear out of ignorance creates anger, and anger leads to suffering, just like Yoda said. It's just something you're taking on yourself. And the key is to start going, hey, wait a minute. Maybe I stirred some of this stink up in this pot. Why don't I see what I can do for me first before I start pointing fingers at them?
If the solution has never been to look at yourself, then how is it that you expect to find it anywhere else?
And that's right out of the good book. Before you consider your neighbor or your brother's sin, look at yourself. Maybe you'll find something in yourself that answers that.
But this movement has gotten way out of control. And the way that people argue with each other, look, we're not each other's enemies, okay? Those people down in the courthouse, they're not even our enemies. They're our brothers and our sisters, okay? It just looks a little strange right now.
You know, they're deceived too. They went to the same schools, man. This shit's ancient.
I heard a lot of conversation about the talk of, you know, the money and the money supply and the money control earlier, and I would have to say, with all of my studies and all of my research, like, it's way more about education control than the money control. There are people that you can't purchase their morals, okay? You can't buy them. But if they're not educated enough to know what's moral and what's not, then you can deceive them into doing immoral things without paying them any more.
Yep.
In this age of information, it's all about the control of the knowledge, okay? And
it's pretty much a smoke and mirrors part, you know, trying to get you off point.
Well, it's all smoke and mirrors, like kind of as the shaman was saying, you know, people, they get these documents and they believe that they can read it, but nobody quite understands in their conscious mind that there are no all-capitalized words in the English language.
None.
Not one. So anytime a word appears in all capitalization, it's not there. It literally is not there because it doesn't exist.
It's not on the page.
And if you go and look at a lot of these legal documents, how is it titled? You know, like I have seriously seen legal documents where the only thing on the page was the name, the phone number, and the address.
I actually got one like that. Hey,
people,
go ahead, sorry.
Well, people just don't, you know, they don't think about it. It's Carl's right. It is so simple, it's scary, but it's so simple, it's really freaking hard. Like, it is really hard. But once you get it, once you understand, once you know how to move, and once you get that fear out of the way, you can move like, you know, knife through a butter.
And look, the hard part is, you know, a lot of scuffling. Like, I'd like to say this is something I've been saying as of late. What I hear, like I heard a solid hour almost of everybody arguing about the symptoms of the flu instead of treating the flu. Look, obviously there's money. Obviously there's currency. Obviously there's tender, and there's a difference. But, you know, we could go into this more. I'm not going to get deep. But look, the Federal Reserve note is both in one. And if anybody would just look at savings to suitors, they give you the remedy right there. But the money is not the problem. The judge is not the problem. The cop is not the problem. That's one of the problems. The problem is education and love. You know, it does no good to argue and argue and argue if you don't give a shit about the man or woman you're arguing with. If you're not willing to go to bat for them and stand in a room with them and next to them and support them, man, no man is an island. Listen, JC,
good
you think
shit,
it's a good time to bring...
Good shit, I love it. Who's talking right now? I love it. Who's talking?
That was Shaman. I want to read something. Look, I don't normally do this. You care if I go ahead with this, JC?
Go ahead.
All right, look. I'm not trying to be a Bible thumper. I'm not trying to tell anybody how to believe. Everybody may believe in the Creator as they wish. I don't even believe exactly the way mainstream does. But I just like to point something out, if I may. And I'm going to paraphrase. Everybody needs to read the chapter of Luke 11 if you want to see what I'm talking about. Basically, up near verse 13, 14 down to 23, Yeshua says, a house divided can't stand. Even Satan has his house in order, basically. Okay? Look, man, he is wired tight. He don't quit. His servants are diligent. They write shit. They study shit. They do shit. They are doers of what they believe. They don't slack, man.
And even when they don't agree with each other, they respect each other.
Like, look, JC and I disagree on some very, very huge points. And borderline contentious sometimes. But it is always in love, and we respect one another. And, man, we are accomplishing great things because we love one another. He's my brother, man. We don't have to agree. And you know what? I've been wrong about a lot of stuff. It took me years to be not wrong about a lot of stuff. And I'm still wrong about some things, I'm sure. Who cares? Who cares? Okay? The point is, I'm going to learn it. You know why? Because in this same chapter, Yeshua says, look, I'm not going to hand it to you on a silver platter, but what son asks his dad for bread and his dad gives him a stone? If you ask, I'll give it to you. If you seek it, you're going to find it. You will find it. It's not maybe if you kind of think about it, I might get around to it in 100 years, maybe. No, dude, it's a covenant. It's a contract. I will do this if you do this. Okay? And there's sides. There are sides. Look, they're not our enemy. Even if they are, they're our enemy. We're not theirs. Our job is to rescue mankind and set up a kingdom of love, honor, integrity, and information on this planet, man. It ain't got shit to do with power.
Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Yeah, and you can't do that if you're screaming at each other. Or you have 4,372 million different beliefs. Dude, 1 plus 1 is 2. There's one law. And I don't give a shit what legislative branch writes what freaking code. The sun's coming up, dog. The moon is going to be in the sky. Grass is green and brown. I mean, you breathe. You know, they can't write legislation against that. That's not law. That's a type of law. That is perishable law. But they can't pass legislation to keep the sun from rising. And the other thing is this, and I'm going to say this because I want to. You know how many times in this same chapter Yeshua says, woe unto you lawyers? Let me tell you what he's saying. I'm going to do very briefly, now shut up. When the Israelites were led into captivity in Babylon, the Code of Hammurabi was basically being implemented. They had maritime law. That went through history on back to the Romans, okay? And they were using that, and they adopted it into Roman law. And when the Israelites came back to Israel after 80 years of captivity, they brought that crap back into the temple. And that was what the money changer thing was. They had set up a legal system over God's law. And now I'm going to read you what he says. Woe unto you lawyers, for you have taken away the key of knowledge, and you have entered in not yourselves, and them that were entering you hindered. Like, you laid men with burdens too grievous to be borne, and you won't even touch them with one finger. They are bartering in the souls of men, and that is ancient mystery Babylon. Guys, there is a wonderful video that JC made called Statutes and Statues. Dude, statutes are idols. They're just the ancient gods repackaged with spellings or spells that they're casting over you with their words. And you're reading their paper, and this spell comes over you from their spellings, and it is sucking you in. And it's putting this burden on you of fear and trepidation and hatred and anger. And it's destroying everyone. And this has got to stop. There needs to be unity and love and knowledge, and people need to start caring for one another and getting to the flu problem, not the sneezing. You don't treat sneezes, you treat the flu, man. Let's go to the root of the problem. The root of the problem is vanity. No love. Vanity. Me, I. Power, more. It's got to stop.
Well, if it doesn't stop, I'm really afraid for my child's future. Like, that's the whole reason I started studying law.
Yep.
Was because I had a kid, and I was making a whole lot of money what I was doing at the time, and I quit just for my child. And I thought about it. I was like, what could I do, to change the world, to make this place a better world for my little son? And I started going down to the law library because law's governing everybody on the planet. I heard another argument earlier about, what type of government you live under. Okay? I don't really care what type of government I live under as long as I can find a court of law. And those are becoming as sparsely populated as unicorns. They're becoming mythical creatures. In fact, there's this courthouse right now where we've been asking the court clerk to find a court of law for us for about 2 weeks now. Yeah, to discover it. Uncover the law so that the people can use it again.
My God, sorry. I was just going to say, we had no intention on being on these calls like this. Like, we were just laying low, trying to take things smooth, man, doing our thing. We're not ruffling feathers. We're not attacking anybody. We're not trying to overthrow any governments. We're not trying to tell those people how to believe. We're not trying to do any of that. If y'all try and do that, you're going to get hammered into dust. You can't put a gun to their head any more than they can put one to yours. But you can tell them that they can't do it to you. You can say, hey, I don't have to believe what you believe. Y'all can tax each other until the damn planet explodes, but I ain't involved in it. It's none of my business.
Love it. Fuck you. On point, brother.
You want to eat tree bark? Have at it. I'm going to eat some cheesecake. So we're giving y'all cheesecake. We're here to get some cheesecake. Y'all want to quit chewing on the bark? Why don't we eat some cheesecake together? That's what we're here for.
Separating the wheat from the chaff.
Like, have you guys ever considered words like, I know it's really hard, there's a lot of people on here, but think of the word defendant. I don't know how many of you ever broke it down. Probably a lot of you have. I don't mean to sound presumptuous, but if you deregulate or you demasculate or if you detangle something, right, you're undoing it. You're taking away from it. So if you're fending for yourself in the woods or you're fending for yourself for dinner, and then I pull you in and I say, hey, you're a defendant, and you go, shit, okay. What did you just do? You just took away your abilities to defend for yourself. You can't fend for yourself now. Now you have to just lay there and take a beating. Carl's right on that.
I always describe it like being the defendant, like unable to fend for yourself, is like walking into a boxing match with your arms all out to the side and you're never going to punch back.
Yeah. Or if you're represented, what does that mean, represent? Like, I'm here, I'm present.
I'm present, yep.
Okay, what do you mean represent myself? What the hell are you talking about? You okay? Are you high?
Can the court please demonstrate how one represents himself?
I told
Has anybody on here ever looked up the word attorney? Like, everybody knows you're not supposed to get one. Jesus apparently didn't like the guys because I can't read one story where he forgave one. But has anybody ever looked it up? To attorn something means to turn over to another lord. And, JC, would you like to explain what Y means?
Well, Y, it's actually EY.
EY.
An attorney, but the Y is characterized by the act of doing. So the EY, an attorney, literally means that they're characterized by, they're in the act of doing, of turning a good or service over from one lord to another. And And anyone who goes and hires an attorney, they are the good and the service.
Trading in the souls of men. Trading in the souls of men, just like it says in Revelation, trading in the souls of men.
I mean, I tell everybody exactly what's going on, but most people don't understand because we've all grown up with these words in our head and these ideas of what they mean. And when I first start working with somebody, get them ready to go into a courtroom, I don't start teaching them law. I mean, that's a side note, you know, but the first thing I start teaching them is what they teach in law school. And that's the way to conceptualize ideas, okay? Because that's the way that they're actually going to get it. If you actually learn how to conceptualize ideas and create your own thoughts and you don't have everyone else thinking for you, that's the way to get through the trial or the try all of you.
If I may, like, you know, and I'm not trying to pick a fight with nothing, but I just want you guys to think about it from another perspective. And there's some information that I can share with everybody freely that will explain this and verify what I'm going to say. Adopt, okay? The word adopt means it ain't yours. You go over and get it from somebody else. And the people that signed the Constitution didn't write it. They adopted it. Okay? They were never countries. They were all chartered companies and still are. They were all owned by the Crown. We all know that attorneys are subject to the Vatican, and attorneys sign for both sides. The king funded both sides of the Revolutionary War. We didn't win because it had nothing to do with us. That was the East India Company being recharted and a big-ass lie and a trick being set up so that they could move their 100-year plan forward. And here we are doing exactly what they wanted us to do. Argue about it. Look, let's say they are a country. Let's say they are. Let's say they're all countries and this guy couldn't do this. I don't give a shit because I'm not in it. I don't care if the United States is a country or a company. Hey, great. Y'all, wish you the best of luck. Hope you're all living right because we all die one day and got to give an account to the Creator. I don't wish to participate. Thank you very much. I'm going to go over here and hang out and eat some cheesecake.
They call it the citizenship for a reason, okay? And
in the culture. It's a cult, man.
Back and it is. If you go back and look at most of the 13 colonies and look at their Declaration of Rights when, after the Revolutionary War, most of their declarations of rights have somewhere in there where there are no courts or admiralty that can be in the world like the court of the common man. Okay, and that's hugely telling to what's going on today because everybody talks about the birth certificate and the Social Security number, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're pulling you into a court of admiralty or maritime jurisdiction.
And there is no common law remedy in admiralty. Now listen to what I said. There is no common law remedy if you're in admiralty. So if you're in person in a state court, you better just say you're under duress because you don't have a common law defense as long as you're in that venue. And if you start that crap, it's sedition, it's sovereign citizen stuff. Look, guys, they're not wrong about everything. I'm not saying they're great people. I'm not saying that they're not. We're not saying that they're not deceptive or using guile. We're not saying that. They're capitalists. They're capitalizing on our ignorance. The key is education. It's not fighting. It's struggling. You know, JC always says that. It's not a fight. It's a struggle, man. But you can't, man, look, if you had to lift a 1,000-pound weight, would you try to do it by yourself, or would you ask a bunch of buddies to come over here and help you lift that thing?
Maybe get some pulleys and ropes.
Yeah, start using your head. Quit fighting them. There ain't nothing to fight. Look, You can't be a defendant. If you're defending a position, it's indefensible. You can't be a defendant, man. You're a debtor. Debtors are guilty. The Bible says not to be a debtor. Why? Because you're guilty. There's no fight. If you don't believe you're bound or they have joinder to you in some way, what are you arguing about?
Exactly.
I mean, just think about it. Like, almost every lawsuit I've seen written up by an attorney will say in the first 2 or 3 paragraphs, it'll say, basically whoever the plaintiff is and that they're starting the suit and that they're a citizen of whatever jurisdiction they're in. And then it will say whoever the defendant is and, that they're a citizen. It actually doesn't say that they're a citizen. It typically says, I believe they're a citizen.
Mm.
Okay, because only the defendant can claim the citizen. Only the one who actually gets served the suit can claim it. It's a fact that they have to establish before they can move forward.
Yeah, like this document that I was talking about earlier for this other guy, and I'm not going to use the name. I'm just going to use the generic Smith name. It says, Mr. Smith's person. And it starts with a lawsuit's been filed against you. Man, that tells you right there, they're not talking to I. They're not hiding it. If there's 1 million people in your yard and you said, hey, you, come here, man, what are you going to do when all them people try to get in your house? We just got to start thinking like common sense, man. Like,
yeah, common sense.
Yeah, just start breaking these words down when you see them. Before we're not lecturing, okay? The reason we got on here is tell y'all, like, the way KL there was doing it was a little schizophrenic. And, Gus, who's great, and we've been talking to him. I've been talking to him for the better part of 2 years, and JC right on my heels. He's a great guy. He's telling truth. It's, we three seen it firsthand. And we're not we're not detracting.
Make that four, brother.
Okay, there you go. We're not detracting, man. He did a great service. He made us think. He's helped everybody on this phone in one way or another. He's done a great service to mankind and some of his beliefs, but he's gotten off track, but we don't need to focus on that. That's going to run its own course, right? That's what tracks do. What we're telling you is you can move a common law action. It absolutely can be done. It's not a unicorn. But there is a certain way to do it, and there's a certain way not to do it.
And I believe we all know that KL never found out how to do one. Kind of like Gus was saying, if he really feels that bad about it, he knows where he lives. He can always go open up a common law court, right?
Yep. And he never answers the question. He just yells at you and tells you, oh, I ain't telling you anything. You got to find it out. Okay.
Oh, and
well, we did. Oh, yeah, and give me 10 grand or 120 grand or 7 grand or your last $15. Look, guys, we're not asking you for nothing. And we ain't yelling at you. We're just telling you can do it.
And the only way you're going to find out, the only way you're going to find out if it actually works is by actually doing it, getting first-hand knowledge of it.
That's the other thing. That's a great point, man. Whoever said that is awesome, because I hear a lot of people talking a lot of shit and no balls to back it up. Man, it takes cojones to walk in there. It's stressful. It's scary. Man, it's serious. The danger is real. But I'm going to tell you from firsthand knowledge and the Creator taking me surrendering my fear to Him, dude, fear is a choice. That was a great line in the movie. Danger, that's very real. Fear is a choice. And I'm telling you, sitting in, I did something stupid. It was an accident, but it was the best mistake I ever made because in 5 minutes it changed my whole life. And one of these days, I'll tell y'all, it ain't important right now, but because of that mistake, He was able to show me what was going down, And he took fear and put a smile on my face. And before it was over, I had everybody in the damn court smiling. And JC's witness.
I was there.
First-hand knowledge. And I had another guy, I hope he's on this call. He was there too, and he saw it. And look, no enemies. They actually called me a week later and told me to have a happy Father's Day. I shit you not. And this guy, 2 weeks before that, was trying to destroy me. But I figured out who I was and how to well, I knew who I was, but I wasn't telling him properly. You see? Once I was able to get that message across properly, we were all good.
Once that fear was lifted and wasn't boggling down his mind, and that fear was gone and his heart could express himself, I mean, he was the most comfortable man in that room.
I'm going to tell you right now, I can't say this is in every case. I don't know. I can just tell you what I've seen and witnessed myself. If you know who you are, man, they honor it, especially on a federal level. I know it sounds hard to believe, but we were at another case where this judge gave this guy 6 freaking hours to try to tell him how he was a man. It was like watching a damn train wreck for 6 hours. I've never seen anything that crazy in my life, and I've seen a lot of shit. And everything we're telling you guys right now, if we're ever called out on it, we can verify everything we're telling you.
Where 2 or more gather, the truth shall be there.
Yeah, man. The Creator's hanging. We ain't perfect. I'm sure we got something wrong. Hell. But I'm telling you right now, in just this last week, and Gus can attest to this, man, he decided it was time to change something, and by gosh, he come in and kicked the table over, and that's what happened.
Yep.
And Gus is freaking awesome. I'm going to tell you all right now, Gus is great, and he ain't lying to none of this.
Hey, Gus.
Yeah.
You there, buddy?
Yeah.
Maybe it's time, like, if somebody wishes to put their hand up and maybe ask a question, you know, we are here to answer any question you may have.
As best we can.
All right. Well, *8. Hit *8 if you want to put your hand up. I just unmuted out. Anybody else, I'll just unmute you. As long as you guys keep the background noise down, I've got no problem leaving everybody unmuted. But if you cannot,
don't talk.
If you cannot unmute yourself, just hit *8 so I can see your hand go up.
And guys, everybody be polite. Don't talk over one another. I mean, everybody's got different viewpoints, but just be courteous, be respectful. Everybody, man, we'll stay on this phone 6 hours if we have to. We want to help everybody we can. We don't have all the answers, but we're here. Everybody get their time. Let's just be kind to one another, okay?
Hey, Gus.
Hey, go ahead, Al.
Yeah, well, I love you guys. You almost got me in tears over here.
Oh.
I told them about you, Al.
Did you?
I said,
oh,
I told him you were a sensitive guy.
Uh-oh. Big hug time.
That's okay. You should have seen the first time I met Karl. I hugged him, and his arms went in the air, and he went stiff as a totem pole. It was funnier than hell, man.
That's Karl, man, right there.
That was a number of years ago. That's when I figured out he was probably autistic, but that's another story. Anyways, I'm just a number of years ago I was going through my own shit, and it came at same reason. I knew there was something wrong. There's something wrong because this isn't the land I grew up in. The way things have been going on, and it was my youngest son that got me into this. And he says, "Dad, you gotta deal with this shit. Dad, you gotta check this guy out." And Dad, I'm like, "Nah, fuck, I'm too busy, man." And I was very political at the time, and so one day I sat down with my son and I said, "Yeah, no." So, I spent a few years studying human rights law and contract law and stuff, and and on and on and on. And then I got hooked up with Karl, a friend of mine. Same kind of story as you guys. They paid him a bunch of money. He did come up and stuff and bailed on him, but that's when I first met him. And about 6 months after that, when I had trouble. So I was going through my stuff and this and that, and I really needed to figure it out. And the establishment cost me everything, and so I wasn't in a position to donate to anybody, to give any kind of big fortune to or anything like that. And I just, I just knew what was right, and it was right in my heart, and it sat with me. So it took me a long time to get out of a lot of stupid crap I had learned. And at the same time as mine was ending, then Gus was in his, hey, and it was funny. And not funny, but it is now, I guess. But so ever since then, I stuck with it, and I'm up in a place up here in British Columbia, Canada, kind of a lone wolf. And so, I'd spend my lunch hours and stuff in my truck writing for guys and helping guys and spending time with guys and stuff, and I got tired of working away from home, so I just came home. And one guy I did help out of an income tax problem. He said, Al, look, man, you need to go home. I'll sponsor you to go home and get back settled, because I hadn't been home in like 3 years, eh? So just working abroad, and like up here, I don't know how to compare it down to you guys down south, but this is like the Ozarks up here. There ain't a lot of work, there ain't a lot of this, and ain't a lot of people. So yeah, I took it. So and I've always continued on. I've always studied. I've always kept my nose to the grindstone with this stuff, and I do take donations. I don't ask people to pay me, but I also tell people, look, man, I got a mortgage at the end of the month, so how many hours a day do you want me to spend with you, this week and next week and next week? And a lot of people don't understand. It's like when you're helping somebody out, a lot of the time you're spending with them, you're actually bringing them to a point where they can actually do some critical thinking. You're training them to be able to stand and act, because you can't act for that woman. I can't act for anybody I'm helping out. Like, all we can do is best prepare them so that they can hold their own court, or they can act as court. Like, I don't, I totally believe in I have seen this stuff work. I have seen this stuff. I've sat in court too many times with other guys or myself, and seen exactly this stuff operate. I went to a place about 12 hours north of here with an Indian fellow that has a reserve school. He was in one of those what do they call them? Schools they put the Indians in, like a reform school, right? He has reform school education. The man's always told him what he can do and what he can't do. He had a very child attitude, and was always looking at, I got to do this or I got to do that because somebody said so. And I worked with this man, and we went up to Williams Lake together, and I went into court with him, and he got a discharge, and this man stood at court, and I was nervous for him because there's his language and the English language, the translation, the intimidation of the court. It was that Superior Court, which here, or Supreme Court here, which is our court of inherent jurisdiction, where they can see him at. Thank God for that. So he's standing there. We negotiated with the prosecutor through writing beforehand. He wasn't ready to hold his own court, and I knew it, but he was willing to if he had to. So before we made a claim or anything, we negotiated, and then his day was coming up, and the prosecutor caved, man. He caved hard, but he had certain things he wanted to hold. So this guy, and I'm sitting on the edge of my seat in this courtroom, and this guy, and of course they're going on with all their bullshit back and forth, blah 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 blah. And the judge looks over at Gilbert, and she says, "Gilbert, what is your wish?" And Gilbert did exactly what I taught him. He looked down at the floor, and he held his finger up in the air, And then he looked up at the woman acting as a magistrate, and he says, "It is the wish of I that the Crown discharge the charges." This woman almost jumped out of her robe. And I watched her, and this is what when I tell guys about flipping the court, because there's, a win is a win. Whether you're holding your own court, whether you flip the judge, whether you flip the court, and I was beside myself. It was just poetry. But I watched this woman acting as the magistrate there, the Supreme Court judge. She all of a sudden turned on that prosecutor and started defending him, and he got a discharge that day. It was a beautiful moment, and that's one of a few where I've been in. And you guys were talking about like the state courts, the legislative courts. That's the way I like to put those courts. All those legislative courts, under their statutes and act, they can't hear a man. You've got no standing there. Anytime you're at a court like that, the best way is to figure your way out of it. Like up here, I got a buddy, and I think he's on the call right now. I've been with, and sorry about that, guys. And they have them in what they call up here a provincial court, which is just it's one of our lowest courts actually, but they have they have the power to fine and imprison or jail, not in prison. Gus knows that difference for sure. And and so anyways, I'm like, we got to get you out of that court. Now up here, there's a number of ways to do this. Of course, I knew we were going to have to make our own claim. I knew that right from get-go, and I did mention that to the guy. He went into court, and he tried, he went into court with his paper, and he didn't really try to stand on his notice. They just knocked him off and knocked him around. But up here, like, we'll use the legal form to knock him over. He has a right up here to get this heard in a court of inherent jurisdiction. And I was talking about, I touched base with him a couple of times. We'll use that legal form. Now, how we use the legal form depends. I would like to give a notice and attach the legal form and use it for the ease of filing for and get this evoked over to a court of inherent jurisdiction where a man can be heard and he has standing. But anyways, I'm sitting here listening to these guys, and I'm going, yes, yes, yes. I haven't talked to Gus in a long time. I think since Ion died there in Ireland and that, and I haven't talked to a lot of guys, and I'm on a lot of these groups, and these guys are right. Like, there's all this bickering and arguing about stupid shit that just doesn't matter going on. And it's so boring, so I barely get on any of these groups anymore. It's just like, my God, you guys, after all this time, like, it's still the same thing. Like, I did a film for YouTube the other day. I just haven't been able to put it up yet. I've been fighting with my computer, but just going back to the person, just to try and simplify this whole person thing with people, because a person is a man. A person is a man. Or a man is not a person, but a person is a man, and you can't have a person without the man, and it is Joinder. And if I ascribe to something and to some society or something, that is the person that I'm operating on. That person cannot operate without the man. It is not fictional. It is real. It is real. Even, people say, well, it's a persona, it's an act, it's a mask. Yeah, but that mask is and dance for itself. It takes a man or a woman to actually make that thing move. So
it's a tool.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I have many.
It's a wrench, a hammer.
Yeah. I have many.
Yeah, I mean, once you understand how to use the person, you can move the person any way you wish.
Yep. It's the golden Blanca ticket.
I believe that there's a proper person for every job.
Yeah, but one thing that people got to understand is, when they go and sign for things and sign for different governmental persons, like, if you notify them, you're really signing an agreement with yourself, okay? And so everybody knows a contract has to have the meeting with the minds, right? Well, where does the mind meet? It meets with myself when I'm signing an agreement with myself. Well, if I'm signing an agreement with myself, and this only works for governments, this does not work for corporations and banking stuff, but this works for governments because they are there to service and provide for you. And you can inform them how you wish that person is, like how you wish that person to be created or perceived. And they're never, ever going to argue with you, because then they have to admit that it exists. They have to admit what they're doing.
Yeah, like today I was helping a friend write a letter and to a public servant, and and I wrote it. It was very, very lovely, very courteous. It was a great little letter, and basically, it was. Listen, any of these things that the government offers us is a benefit, and there's a reason that they give us the benefit, because we're from here, and they're operating on our land. And so they offered benefits that we can join into the corporate body politic if we wish. If we don't wish, we don't have to. And just because I get a hunting license doesn't mean I have to act as a hunter 24/7. That doesn't mean I still can't forage, which is my God-given right to forage for my necessities. Right?
Hey, Al.
And people can't, they think, oh, you've got a driver's license, so you're stuck being a driver any time that you go from point A to point B with your car. No, that's not true. And how many guys I've seen write a letter to the state or to the province or motor vehicles or whatever, saying no, I wasn't under contract at that time, and then watch the tickets disappear. It's simple. It's your choice how you wish to use the benefit. I have a number of persons or benefits that I signed up for with the government, but I don't operate all of them. And to have somebody just come in and say, hey, you're in violation of this. Well, sorry, I'm not acting as that right now. Not that I'm going to have the big argument with the guy, whole court on the side of the road or anything. Now, the type of court they drag you into, the administrative court that they bring you into, is, I try to get it across to people that these are like military tribunals. Okay, you're one of their employees, or you're one of their privates, and you're going in, and these officers are saying that you did this and you did that, and the officer is perfect, because I know the office of the officer is perfect, as best as they can get it, and so they're saying you do wrong. So for me to go into one of their tribunals and say not guilty is actually a dishonor to myself, right? Nope. For me to go in and act at that court is a dishonor to myself. So I try to correct it by writing letters and notices, and these are letters and notices in a manner that if I ever ended up in a trial and my letters or notices notices went before a jury, no matter what court it's in, the jury's going to say, well, geez, he asked you this, he asked you that, he begged you for this, or not begged, but and like you're just kicking this guy's ass, which is wrong, and I can show the manner of man I am, and those are my exhibits for the wrong that's being done, and that's where I go over to a common law court, or at least a court of inherent jurisdiction. Even on the legal side, I've seen I hate to use the word remedy, but I've seen, satisfaction. I've seen justice even on the legal side at a court of inherent jurisdiction where the judge does wear many hats.
Hey, Al.
Go ahead.
Well, it's important to note, too, that there's different things and there's different beliefs on that, too. But just for instance, I'm glad you brought up the military tribunal, because there's a lot of misunderstanding, and this is a personal thing. I'm not dragging JC in on this, although I think he probably agrees. There's a huge movement on the birth certificate, beneficiary, trustee relationship thing, and they're saying you can't be a trustee and a beneficiary at the same time, and what's the relationship, and in reality, if you're using the Social Security number, it says right in the Social Security Act that you are listed as an auxiliary beneficiary, which is no different than a women's auxiliary at the fire department. You're not a fireman. It's not. The Social Security number was created for the benefit of Congress, not us. That's why you're gifting 100% of your earnings to the person and pledging to be a surety for the debt of the United States, whereby as that acting as a citizen, although you're not, because nobody went into court and swore an allegiance to the United States, which is what is necessary to be a U.S. citizen. You can't be a U.S. citizen just by getting a Social Security number or just by getting a driver's license. That's not how it works. But once you do that, you're acting as a holder of public office, which is why everywhere that's chartered and every business has federal OSHA regulations, federal minimum wage requirements, and all those things posted right there for everybody to see, because technically you're acting as a federal employee. So you are literally surrendering 100% of your earnings and your life when you're acting under that title.
I did that on a handshake with a major land developer with no invoices. Everything was on a handshake deal, word of mouth. Now it doesn't put me under their legislation. It doesn't put me under an SIN. And any add-ons I did put onto those guys when I did invoice them, it was tax exempt and it was due compensation due. Fair and just compensation due, you know. You can't tax compensation. They even tell you that. If you're on compensation, you go to the bank and you try to get a loan or a mortgage, they'll say, well, no, we can't use that. We can't use that as income because it's not income. So these are things I've learned over the years as I've been going on as well. And and we've all heard this many times. You know, there's more than one way to skin a cat. But yeah, that SIN, I didn't sell my soul to the devil just because I applied for an SIN number when I was a kid. If I use it, then there's certain ways to act as a taxpayer under that number. If I don't use it, why are you bothering me? It's a voluntary compliance. It even says so in your own books. Right? I don't wish to volunteer or comply at this time.
Hey, just curious if anybody's got any questions that they'd like to throw out there.
I guess it's your opportunity.
I love you guys, man, and it was really good hearing. Like I say, I've been up here by myself for quite some time and haven't really been in contact with many, and I just love hearing your success on on your court, and just having the balls to go stand. It takes a lot of balls, guys. It does. But, don't let them know you're nervous. Simple as that. Keep your composure. Worked for me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let somebody else talk. Thanks again,
guys.
There
There was one question that keeps coming up. Have these guys held their own court yet? I need to go back, but one of the things that yes, it is. This is being recorded. One of the things that one of the biggest beefs I have with KL is him going around telling everybody it's so simple, it's scary, and he's typically talking about opening up your own court, carrying a claim, a court of record, the jury, your trial by jury. So if you put the pieces together, which it sounds like he's talking about, the part that's so simple it's scary is you just put a claim into a common law court, carry it through a trial by jury, a court of record, and you'll end up with a judgment that's executable against whoever it is that's the wrongdoer. And I've heard this over and over again for 4 years. I've been contacted by people who got a hold of him for that purpose, who nobody got what they were looking for, and it doesn't mean they didn't get resolution. Okay, I mean I learned a shit ton of stuff, but not that. And what I ended up using in my gun case in 2015 was Acts 25:16. Okay, I require to face my accuser, period. And until I face my accuser, we aren't talking about anything else. And so, but the question that I've seen on the board as you guys have been talking is, have these guys held their own court yet?
Oh, hey, I'm glad you brought that up. Man, am I ever glad you brought that. Yeehaw.
Yeah, well,
okay. I know personally, I know a couple of guys that did get their own courts. All right.
Well, I've gotten my own court. I've filed stuff and got my own court. They stamp my paperwork, but there always seems to be some roadblock before you get to a jury. And you know, I've not heard of anybody getting an executable judgment that they were able to take to the sheriff and say, execute this.
Oh, the judges, nobody shows up. You show up and a judge slams the gavel down and runs out the door. You know, I've seen that a number of times. So here's one of Cale's tricks, guys, and this is where he does succeed on this. What he does is, and this is why he gives people crap for not getting their case filed. The trick that he uses is he gets his case filed. He gets his case filed, and then he puts his claim in their case file. He serves it to them, and so on and so forth. In Bali's case, they just put it in the other guy's case file and had it heard at the same time. And that guy could have turned around and said, "Hey, man, I haven't had time to deal with this," or whatever, and that would have put him, you know, that would have like changed the whole game right there. But you get your case filed, you make sure the other side's served, and you put that your file, your claim, in their file. They have been served on this, and then you petition, or not so much petition, but you're asking for your court to be held at the same time for the proper reasons. Now, when you do that, if the judge slams a gavel or roadblocks you or runs out of the court, then that means everything is off. So they lose theirs too, right? It nullifies it.
Yeah, but Al, if I take you to court and I open up a claim against you, and I call you the wrongdoer, I'm the claimant, and I require, you know, and I serve you, what do we do? Okay, how do you get that? How do I get my claim heard in a court of record at common law through a jury, a trial by jury, all the way to judgment, where the judge, the clerk witness it, sign off, I bring it to the sheriff, and he goes and executes whatever that judgment is.
Right. Okay, y'all ready for an answer, or y'all going to keep talking and asking the same question over and over again?
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, I can only speak if you guys give me the chance to speak.
You're talking, aren't you?
Okay, thank you. All right. Here's the answer for you guys. All right? Shaman and I are not very comfortable talking about our experiences. We told you guys what we told you. Now I'm going to give you a secret. All right? If you have two other witnesses, when you are filing your claim, what you do is you take it to the magistrate with the two witnesses, and y'all all testify and put a declaration in there. All right? And when three people testify to the same facts upon a record of a court, and you guys, y'all talk about this court of record stuff. I don't care about the record. Like the court of record, whose court is it? It's your court. Whose record is it? It's your record. If you take a record down there, you have a court of record. You wish for a court of law.
Yep.
Okay? So when you have a court of law and you open your own record and you are down there and three people testify to the same facts, okay, either the wrongdoer has to pay you, like you can move a judgment for, like against them with the man sitting up on the bench, you know, or you can move a judgment in front of the jury. Because the facts upon the record, that's what's solid. That's what people aren't doing. Okay? They're not going down there in multiples and putting facts on the record at the same time. Does that answer the question?
Oh, yeah.
You're declaring.
I don't go to court without witnesses, and anybody that I'm working with, I make sure that they have.
What I'm saying is that when you actually file the claim,
yeah,
okay,
I hear you.
When you go and you take people and you file it with the magistrate, and you open up the court right there, and you go ahead and you place the facts on the record viva voce with your voice and with the voice of the others.
That is the court. It's right there.
All right, question.
Somebody just asked if you guys had done that yet.
What did we just say in this answer? What did we just say? I just said Shaman and I are not comfortable speaking about our experiences.
Well,
and then I gave you that answer. Yeah, I mean, we're only going to let out what we wish to let out at the time we wish to let it out. Okay? So if it's a question in law, we're going to answer it. And that's the way I took that question.
Just going to wait a few more years again like we had to do with Karl, huh?
Nope. He just gave you the answer. We're just not telling you how we did it. We're not telling you about the specific anything. We're telling you the answer. You just got the answer. Karl never gave you that. We just told you. You didn't wait 10 seconds. He just gave you the answer. That's what you do. We're just not going to tell you it was Jimmy versus Nellie. And then we went on Sunday at 2 o'clock, and I had red underwear on. He just gave you the answer, brother.
And if y'all want to keep saying those other things, then I don't got to be here. You know? Like, that's cool with me. I got better things to do. Like, the reason I got out of groups like this was because of all of the infighting. And the thing I did is I went down to a law library, and I spent years figuring this stuff out on my own. Was that an answer you ever got from KL? Ever?
He never told you how to do it.
Tell you to do that. Ever. Can you pull up one audio where he's talking about that?
Like, it's not, I know, JC, it's just frustrating because it's just like today when something was placed on a WhatsApp group, it was an audio. Obviously, it wasn't 300 audios like we have, but it was a snippet to show somebody something. And it's like, well, where's the rest of it? It's like, dude, damn it, you just got the answer and you're still bitching. It's like, what do you want me to do? Come, like, dress you and wipe your butt? I mean, come on. So it's not being rude. It's not meaning to be frustrated. It's just like he literally gave you the answer on how to open court and move your claim, and you said you had to wait 10 years like we did with Karl. Karl's never answered that question because he didn't know the answer. You don't have to wait. All you have to do is rewind it and listen to it. He just told you the answer.
Yeah, I guess you just gotta wait till tomorrow.
Guess 52 says Karl walks people through the process one-on-one. No, he don't. Okay. You can't.
Karl has never walked anybody other than to the bathroom.
Well, no, he's walking. Karl will tell you whatever you want to hear until he's got your money in his hands. And then he'll tell everybody how you lied to him and that you have no integrity and that he has no obligation to help you. But he's not going to give you your money back. He's just, got no obligation to help, and he's going to walk away.
Yeah, he did it to me.
Over and over and over again.
He did it to me.
I'll give you guys
and
that.
Instead of
on the other side, also seeing him put out for people with no money. And help people get successes. Walk them through a court of record? No. but I have seen him put himself out for people, and for basically nothing as well. So,
Okay.
Yeah, but once a liar, always a liar, right, Al? That's what he always says. Once a liar, always a liar. And he's literally helped people till they hung themselves.
I've seen those people.
Well.
Like even in my own, he didn't do any paperwork or anything.
Stay off
He did
of
spend.
KL, because I think that's a pretty emotional topic.
Yeah, let's just stay off that.
Now.
Right now,
Okay.
it's just he just gave the answer. Everybody should be clapping and jumping up and down. The answer was just given. Isn't everybody happy about that?
Well, we are. You just can't see us.
Well, the one guy wasn't happy, whoever that was. He's like, 10 years until,
Hey,
wow.
Let's just move on. Is there another question?
Oh, no, listen, guys. No, that answer you gave was so important to everything I'm doing
Yeah, I
here
don't
now.
want it overlooked.
It's
I don't want it
huge.
overlooked. He just gave you the answer.
It was huge.
That was the key to the kingdom right there that KL's been holding on to all these years. Right there it is. There it was.
And there's a guy on this call that I'm helping out, and when he goes to file his claim, I'm going with him. No, absolutely. Because I filed my claim. I filed my claim on my own. I got the court open. Well, I can't really say that, but I presume I got the court open. I was dealing with the Chief Justice, the building manager, and I got my claims filed, and then they went and stayed everything. And then I said, good. I'm 1,000 miles away from home, and I don't need to be here anymore. See you all later. So I was happy.
Does anybody else have a question?
I will say this, it is not always advantageous to go and file a claim. If somebody is coming after you, it's not always advantageous to go and file one. For instance, Paul, I don't believe Paul would have ever been arrested had he never filed a claim. I believe that the ATF would have let him go, and he would have been on his merry way, except for the fact that he started filing claims against agents.
After all he had was a toy moderator. It wasn't a silencer.
So, when you're moving these things, you got to be very, very careful on what you're doing. And one thing that I always tell people is common law is incredibly easy as a defense. It is incredibly easy. It's as easy as walking in there and saying, where's my accuser? My accuser's not here. Is that the plaintiff? The plaintiff's not here either. Really? I don't wish to do this anymore. We got to get this done. Where's the accuser of the plaintiff? They didn't appear? That's how simple. And it's not that simple because the man up there, he's going to do a lot of little tricky things to try and knock you off that point. Multiple times, and they are really good at it. In fact, Shaman and I, when we actually took the claim up to the federal courthouse, and we took it up to this attorney in the federal courthouse. And we start talking to him, and of course, at first, he's kind of thinking we're, sovereign citizen, nut jobs. And we hand him the paperwork, and after that, he was acting like we were attorneys. He was treating us like we went to law school.
He was speaking us with great respect, and he even informed us of a couple of things you would never expect a U.S. attorney to ever utter.
And we're not going to talk about those things.
Not that.
But we will tell you that part of the experience.
I want to state this, too. A lot of people, and I used to think this, too, man, and this was one of the things that kept me chasing KL was, there's some magic sentence. I'm just going to get this magic sentence on this magic piece of paper. I'm going to put this in, and boom, it's done. I don't have to go to court, dude. I don't have to do nothing. Man, there ain't no magical. Your paperwork is imperative, and about 5% of what you got to do. You have got to go in there and be man. And that is one thing I absolutely agree with Karl on. And it took me a couple years to figure out what he meant by that, but he was dead right on that, wasn't he, JC?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, paper's dead.
Whose image was man made in? Whose? But you got to understand it. You got to realize it has to flow inside of you.
That's where the law's supposed to be written. It's on your heart.
Your heart. And your heart, like, even thinking about this from a physiological standpoint, your heart sends about 50,000 more signals to your brain than your brain sends to your heart.
Your heart actually has a brain of its own, actually.
Your heart actually thinks more than your brain does.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It has its own brain, everything. That's what people call the sixth sense.
Also, there's really broken heartstrings. There's really heartstrings that break.
Mm-hmm. But, like, before everybody gets off here, I don't know how much longer it's going to go. I mean, we're still here, but, you know, we're thinking about doing if Gus will be so generous as to allow us to join him on his show, you know, we'd probably like to start spending as many wind days as we can with y'all and try to get, you know, some harmony going here and some good information out, answer questions for people that are hurting and have needs. But, you know, the other thing is guys, you got to dig. I mean, you can't be a little bird with your mouth open. You know, it's something, you can't get it in your heart if you don't do it and you don't study and you don't search and seek and it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of dedication. You have to sacrifice a lot of family time and hanging out time. You know, I do a lot of different things for fun and I don't get to do them that much anymore. Because I'm on the phone with JC and we're faces in a book and a dictionary and a discussion or something, or we're helping someone. So, you know, it takes a lot of dedication and sacrifice. So, but, you know, we all do that. Man, we can really do some cool stuff. And we also have to remember that this is the Creator's table, man. We're just servants of the Creator, and we're here to bring His kingdom. So He's the head of the table. And what He says goes. And we need to start listening better, I think, and quit trying to be autocratic and trying to take the self-governance thing past what the original boundary was, you know?
Was that the only question of the whole night? Say it ain't sad.
That's actually pretty amazing. They've been waiting for 10 years to get the answers. Here we are, and nobody's asking anything.
Well, hey, this is Jedi Mikey. I'm gonna leave already. Thank you, whoever was talking to all three of you guys. Totally concur on that. I have first-hand knowledge of that as well. And just want to let you guys know that keep it going, you guys. Love it. Love
hey, Jedi Mikey, announce your show again for people so they don't have to go back to the beginning and find it and all that chaos.
I got a question.
What's up?
Go ahead.
If you've gone through the court process statutorily, like in the court of equity, and you're like near the end, not quite final judgment, can you flip the court to common law, or how would you handle such a thing?
Are you in a court of equity?
I think so.
You said? Okay, so if you're in a court of equity, it's moving under equity, and equity is completely separate from law.
Yep.
So there could be things that happen in that case that you could turn into law. Does that make sense?
It might to somebody who's more educated than me. So I'll give you a little background. It's a foreclosure case, and they're trying to they tried to foreclose with a forged deed of trust, and I've been able to hold them off for like 7 years.
And that's where your key is right there. They're trying to foreclose it with a forged, right?
Yep.
You hear that word right there, forged?
Yep, they took the signature
That's where you
page
take
and
it
put
over
new
the wall.
pages on the front.
That's where you take it over the wall, whatever's forged. You just have to find out who forged it.
Like the actual person that stapled the...
No, the actual man
or woman. It's always who sent this document to I. Like you've got to go in and pull out whoever did that. Like a person is ambiguous. There's lots of persons. You want to find out the particular man or woman that actually sat down, typed it up, and sent that.
I am Lawfan and I am a retard. Ha ha ha.
Okay.
What was that?
Can I do that? Well, I've narrowed it down somewhat during discovery, but I certainly don't have somebody admitting to it yet. But I do have the bank paying the bill for filing. I've got the check number, and it's one consecutive of a check number going to another party, or maybe two numbers later. So it was the bank that, or somebody, acting on behalf of the bank that filed it into the Register of Deeds.
Okay, I mean, typically to file something into the Registry of Deeds, you have to have some sort of signature on it. Like, to file a public document, the public has to know who it's coming from.
My signature was on it, and my wife's signature on it, because they took that page from the original and filed it with 3 new front pages. But I don't think there's any other signature on it. Right? There's no record to identify. I was able to get a certified copy of the statement showing that a certain check number paid for the recording, but there's no actual name of a man or woman attached to the act of filing it at the county register of deeds, as far as I know. Maybe I just didn't ask the right questions, because you know how they don't tell you unless you exact.
Oh, yeah, I mean, they will try and run you around in circles until your legs fall off. You have to know exactly who you're talking to, exactly what they're doing. They won't help you out at all.
Okay.
I mean, and they're not really good about that. Like, you really have to go in there and take control. And the other thing is that if you're in the wrong spot, and I'm sure a lot of people have experienced this, like if you're trying to do something in one spot or you should be in another spot and you're not, 100% courteous, they'll have you escorted out.
Yeah, I've been escorted out of that building a few times.
Yeah, this is a very, very dangerous game. It's not one to be taken lightly.
Yeah, I spent a week in jail because I opposed their fraudulent foreclosures with a friend of mine. So I know what you're talking about. So basically you have to come up with a man or a woman and then make a claim against that man or woman that either filed it, which is a felony, or did the actual forging of it.
Well, I mean, the first thing that you have to do, and this is where Karl was absolutely correct, the first thing that you have to do whenever you find whoever that man or woman is you got to write them. And you got to say, hey, get off my toes. You know, like, you're on my toes. You might not know you're on my toes, but you are. And after this point, you can't deny that you're on my toes. And then you give them time to answer you. And then you do it again. I mean, that's the administrative process. Like, court is always and should always be the absolute last option. Like, when you're dragging somebody into court, you're not even dragging them into court. You present it to the court like they're dragging you. Hey, man, I did everything in my power. I wrote them this letter. I wrote them this document. I did this, and then I showed them. I was like, hey, if you don't stop trespassing, you elect to go to court. It's always the wrongdoer that drags into court, like the court to convene. It's always convened around the wrongdoer. Because if he didn't do anything wrong, there'd be no reason for a court. Like, court was only made for two reasons, okay? Court was made to settle disputes, you know, civilly, and then to punish people for wrongs. I mean, it was basically made so that people would have a incentive to be godly to one another, to treat each other with respect and not try and get over on people. And to give remedy for when people do get over on people. Like, that's the whole reason they exist. Just use them. But only if you absolutely have to. I mean, typically, I would say in 90% of the stuff that I help people with, it's not much more than writing a couple of documents. It's like one of my buddies one time, I love this story, but one of my buddies.
That makes sense.
Like, that's the whole reason they exist. Just use them. But only if you absolutely have to. I mean, typically, I would say in 90% of the stuff that I help people with, it's not much more than writing a couple of documents. It's like one of my buddies one time, I love this story, but one of my buddies, he calls me up as I'm putting my kid to bed, and he's like, JC, man, I know you know this law stuff. How do I get a recording on my phone? Like, how do I call somebody and I record it? I'm like, whoa, bro. Like, chill, what happened? Dude, they sent me this letter, man. They sent me this document. Well, what does it say? Man, it's telling me to move this building I put right there, and they're going to kick me out if I don't do it. Okay, so he had a building on his property, and they came by and they said, here in the rental agreement, you know, you can't have that, and you have to submit a plan to us, you know, otherwise you have to take it down. But are you going to leave it when you move in a couple of months? Because if you are going to leave it, we'll probably go ahead and guarantee your submitted plan. If you aren't going to leave it, we're probably going to make you tear it down just to be jerks, you know? And so he gives me this. He sends me a picture, and I'm like, hey, it's right here, submit. That's your one word, you know, just like you said, forged. There's your word. That's the way you move it into law. And so here, submit. Do you wish for me to lower and sink into the ground that building? Because that's one definition. You know, and I'm guessing it's not the definition you mentioned because you were saying something over here about sinking into a septic tank. The other definition is to bow to an authority. I know that I rent this property from you, and I don't see anywhere in this rental agreement that says that I can't place my property upon the property that I rented from you. And so I'm really sorry you feel that way, but if you wish for I to submit a plan to you, I'm going to have to require fair and just compensation. And that was it. It was done. It was like 4 sentences, and they never, ever did anything about it.
And you took the building with him after he moved?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, thanks for answering my question, or at least getting me started. I'll have to listen to a whole bunch more recordings.
We're going to have a lot more coming. So people, they got to start thinking differently. They got to change their mindset. They got to come together. They have to. Because if they don't, I did all of this for nothing. I went down and spent years of my life at the law library for nothing. I should have been out there getting drunk with the rest of them. Because we are losing. And it's not because we're wrong. It's because we're fighting with each other.
And believing every freaking harebrained freaking crap the internet ever spits out.
I have to make an admission followed by a small apology. I get I wouldn't say heated in the moment, but I get a little passionate about tell some other things at a later date. That just kind of acts as.
Can I ask your name, please?
Money Mike 5000.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I thought that was your voice, man. It's cool, dude. We've all got scars.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming out superior to your former self.
For my I had a federal hearing, okay? I went through a federal court on my issue. And I turned Gus onto this guy the other day. And I'm pretty sure he liked him because he didn't write me back telling me he sucked. But it's a church dude out west. And Karl kind of left me on the battlefield. And I was a little disheveled at that moment because, when somebody you kind of trust leaves you in a vulnerable position and lies about you, and he knows that you're not something, or what he's saying, he knew he was lying about, it made me have a few moments of doubt. So I was just talking to this preacher. He's a very good man. Very honorable, and he's been doing this for the better part of 30 years with great success, just in a little bit different way. And maybe we can talk about that sometime in the future. But he said, I've been to court many times. His dad was one of the most famous lawyers in Texas history and was a great teacher of, oddly enough, natural rights to the point where they took it away from him. But he said, you keep approaching this like it's a fight. And it is on one level, he said, but something I never hear you say is, you wish to go in there like a servant to these people. Like, have you ever considered going as a servant? The king of creation came down as a servant. I don't believe you're going to have success till you learn how to be a servant. And at the time, my first reaction was, what the hell are you talking about? Do you know these people? And then after a couple of days, it was like, man, this man's a wise man. I know he is. And I just kept mulling it over. And I met JC through a mutual circumstance. And that's a story in of itself one of these days. But when I was sitting there after that mistake I made in the marshal's office, thinking over my mistake, I gave the fight up. I just took that and I just took it off. I was not going to do it anymore. And if I did something wrong, I was completely prepared to accept that judgment. When I went back into that courtroom, I stated my position on a document, spoke to the man in black about it, and I went back with a humble heart, no fear. I asked the right questions. But I made sure to tell them, hey, there's no controversy, guys. I'm here to settle any matter of controversy in anyone who's listened to Gus's case. There's no better online representation of how to handle yourself than that video. It was wonderful.
In fact, just so that everybody who is here now and listens to this recording later, Gus's video is the first thing that we hand out, and we make people watch it religiously for like a week if they got to go into a criminal action.
Yeah, we don't even, that's the only thing we tell them. You watch this for a week, 2-3 times a day at least, then we'll talk this weekend. Don't even call us, man. But I just wonder if anybody who calls and listens to this call, if you've ever considered coming at it with a servant's heart. If you did something wrong, make it right. But if you didn't, don't. It's not that complicated. Like JC said earlier, common law is a defense, right? Who's the man or woman that's going to come forward? Karl has that right. Who's the man or woman that's going to come forward and say I did something wrong? If they're here, man, you bring them in here. I got to make this right now. Right now. I don't want to wait. I don't wish to wait. Let's get it over. How do you argue with somebody like that? Think about it from their perspective. If you had somebody sitting across the table from you, and they're sitting there saying there's no controversy, tell me what I did wrong, I wish to make it right now, just bring the man or woman in here that I did wrong, and I'm ready to go. Man, how do you get that individual person, man, woman, in front of a jury and say, hey, Al mentioned this similar earlier, I've asked him 517 times, where's the bill? I wish to settle. What more can I do? What do you want me to do? You guys brought me in here saying there's a controversy. I'm telling you there isn't one. Let's settle now. And you guys keep trying to pound me into sand? For what? Well, because there is nobody saying you're doing wrong. Oh. Then why are we here, guys? Come on. What are we doing here? It's not F you and you're stupid and you spawn of Satan and you guys are evil and you have a Kabbalah and you're the Illuminati and it's chemtrails. It's okay, some of those things are true. Heck, most of them may be true. But they ain't got nothing to do with it. I'm here to settle any matter of controversy. Who's a man or woman says I did wrong? Bring them in here right now. Give me the bill. Pre-tender the bill, and I offer to settle now. I'm just here to help you all out. It's really hard to be angry with someone like that. It's really hard for them. It kind of takes some of their fame, wouldn't you think? I would think so. I know it wouldn't me. If I was doing something wrong in my heart, I knew I was trying to get over on somebody, and they came in there with a tender, gentle spirit like that, I'd have a really hard time going for it. And I'm not saying there ain't guys that wouldn't do it. There's some guys that cut your neck off just because you have blonde hair. But I think a majority of people have kids and families, and they've at least heard of the Creator at some point, and at least on some level they're afraid when they die, that they're going to have to answer to something. I'd like to think that there's still some semblance of law and love and truth left in that system, that all of those people realize that their granddaughters, grandsons, uncles, husbands, cousin Judy that lives in Ohio, that these people aren't in the vicinity of, let's say you're a magistrate, you're talking to a magistrate. What happens when they're not a magistrate anymore?
Exactly.
I think the system, and I don't remember the magistrates getting the memo from the United Nations on the fluoridated water that's giving them all cancer and thyroid issues. If these people think that they're on the inside, you better think again. You're not on the inside of anything.
Out-group mentality, and even on the in-group, there's still an in-group and out-group mentality.
Hell, there's layers like a onion. And when it comes right down to it, there's a bunch of people at the top who could care less about anybody, and they're using everybody against everybody. And just like the book says, a house divided cannot stand. It's not just with this, whatever you want to call, movement of common law, if that's what you wish to call it, not just there, but with those people that think they're against us. Man, that's a house divided. The last time I checked, they're not another species from another planet. They're man and woman just like we are. They drink the same water, breathe the same air, hang around on the same plane, same dimension. Like the chains that they put on us, putting them right on themselves, right on their kids, right on their uncles, right on their grandma. So, what happens when they start marching people into camps because they talk like we're talking right now? Sooner or later, they're coming for y'all too. Because that's the nature of darkness, is to consume everything. Darkness is evil. Evil wants to kill even itself because it can't be happy. It's not going to stop until it just consumes everything. But that's where good comes in, Good, godly, goodly men, goodly man working together. I don't give a shit how dark it is, man. The smallest pinprick light conquers darkness. Smallest light, man. There's no way darkness can win because, quite frankly, it doesn't exist. It's merely the absence of light. So all we have to do is be light. We conquer darkness. It's that simple.
Awesome. Hey, forgive me for interrupting. Gus mentioned earlier about anybody has calls coming up. I have a call coming up on 142306. It's going to be held immediately after Angela Stark's call is over with tomorrow night.
Hold on a second.
Okay, so one of the things that I'd like to get back to about what Sean was talking about is that a lot of this battle is winning the hearts and minds of the people. That's what we're trying to do, and it's not just that we're trying to win the hearts and minds of you guys. We're just coming out right now. We haven't tried to do that yet, but every time we go in there, that's what we try and do to the other side, because the other side would have no power if nobody gave it to them. If everybody knew right from wrong, the other side would do the right thing. I never go in there thinking about being vengeful or what I can do to them. The only intent, the only motive I have to go in there and do something is with the intent that they start following the law. That's it. That's all I wish for, because if they follow the law, it's really, really easy because the law is simple.
I hope that we can get on these calls, vote right down and vote. There'll be somebody on there, damn it, you misquoted the Bible, you going to hell, boy.
Or I don't know. Not follow.
Yeah,
I don't mean that way. Let's break it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We hope, this is kind of new for us, we were never going to do this. This was the direction that we were led in, and pretty much we got in the boat, and this is what's going on. And we're just trying to ride the wave right now, as long as the Creator tells us to do this. Our intention is to get to know people and hopefully, we can all build bonds together and start working together and get on a more simplified, common, unified path. So, we wish to build relationships with people. So honestly, we're just kind of new to this, So we're going to need help too from you guys.
Yeah, I mean, actually, when we were talking with Gus about everything that was going on, we've been trying to get him to deliver